What we're interested in criminology is why people commit crimes and why people develop to be offenders, and also there's a lot of work on how to deal with offenders, how to prevent offending, how to treat offending in order to reduce future offending. In regard to the development of offending, I think 50 years ago the emphasis was very much on theory, whereas I think since Al came in and with Al's influence and the influence of other people, there's been more emphasis on data and evidence, really, and just give me the facts. Al started developing models of the criminal justice system. That was his first work. He developed the JUSIM model, which was excellent, very interesting, and it enabled us to predict what would be the effect of changing one part of the system on another part. So if you decided to convict more people of a particular crime, what impact would that have on the prison population, for example? From that, he developed into models of offending, the development of offending, criminal career models. And I think this was very important in being able to predict the future course of criminal careers. So he developed, he's famous particularly for the idea of lambda, which is basically the individual offending frequency. I worked with him in the 1980s, and what we showed was that by purely focusing on the individual offending frequency and the probability of continuing or desisting, we could explain a very large number of criminal career features. So we could predict future criminal careers just by suggesting that there were two populations of offenders who differed in their rates of offending and in their probability of desisting. So with very simple assumptions, you could predict and explain a huge amount of criminological data on criminal careers. And I think this was a huge step forward in the 1980s. And that's the thing we did in several papers with Al and with Arnie Barnett.
We worked together on some papers about so-called criminal careers. The idea that a person may start committing crimes and continue to commit them, and even if the person is incarcerated for a while, when the person gets out, it may be the person will simply resume committing crimes up to a certain point. When people get to age 85, they typically have retired from a criminal career. But thinking about individuals that way is very helpful in policy analysis. It's not a matter that you have a large number of people each committing a few crimes. You have a small number of people who commit the overwhelming bulk of crimes. And understanding the process statistically by which they enter criminal careers, they continue criminal careers, they leave criminal careers, and what happens during the career. This is a subject on which I've worked on papers with Al and David Farrington.
What good and what harm do we do when we incarcerate people? Incarceration is the principal response by the criminal justice system to wrongdoing, and there's clear evidence that it does harm by making some people worse criminals as a result of what we do. It's clear that it's intended to do good by incapacitating somebody so that he can't do much harm in the street by taking him off the street. But what are the trade-offs, and can we distinguish who benefits from incarceration and who is harmed by it? And there's very little research in that realm.
Al has two professions. He's a world-renowned criminologist, and he's a world-renowned operations researcher. And to me, operations research, and I think to Al too, is really discovering the physics of the human systems in which we operate every day. So it's totally natural for Al to say, oh, here's a criminal justice system, 7 different administrative groups. He says, I'm going to look at this as a system. I'm going to invent the physics of the criminal justice system. And that led to our first major paper, Models of a Total Criminal Justice System. That was an operations research study. His heading of the Science and Technology Task Force, he was headed it as an operations researcher. He was not a criminologist at the time. He was learning this stuff at the same time I was and the rest of the staff. And then he learned so much of it, but he had a unique point of view from the operations research. That's when he became very knowledgeable and president in criminology as well. So he's had 2 sterling careers in 2 different, usually viewed as 2 different silos, but he linked them together, he bridged them together.
Al's one of the first, if not the first, set of people to understand that we have a criminal justice system that is not really a system. So, distinct parts that need to work together in order to work well. So there's the police that arrest people, there's the lower courts who decide whether those people deserve bail or not, there's the jail and the probation, and these are all run by distinct actors. In a place like Allegheny County, there's 111 police chiefs making those arrest decisions. So Al was among the first to kind of try to think about this as a full system and bring operations research to understanding how these parts fit together. Without that, we don't even have a basis to understand this work.
I think it's fair to say Al is one of the founders of quantitative analysis in the study of crime and justice. In particular, in the study of the justice system, but the study of criminal careers, but also the study of aggregate crime rates, crimes per population. Al's done a lot of work, and much of my work with Al is devoted to the study of change over time and crime rates.
My background is unusual for criminologists. I was trained in engineering and operations research. So I bring quantitative perspectives and analytic perspectives that have not been traditional in criminology. Since I got involved, people have taken more statistics, but that's still different than the mathematical modeling and the analytic perspective that I think I bring. And therefore, it's very satisfying to be able to have people listen because I do bring that distinctive perspective.
Al deeply understands the mathematics and the importance of getting the mathematical model right. Al, and David for that matter, understood that if the work is to have influence, you have to be able to explain it to people who are not mathematicians, who don't want to hear about diagonalizing the matrix, but want to get a sense of what you concluded and why, when you think about it, it makes sense. And Al was a master at that. They sometimes talk about two cultures, numeracy and literacy. Al is extraordinarily at home in both worlds. He's a master. There's that poem, If by Rudyard Kipling, to walk with kings nor lose the common touch. Well, I'm not necessarily talking about kings and commoners, but Al could talk to the most abstruse researcher in mathematics and at the same time talk to political leaders in Washington in ways that indicated real understanding of what their concerns were and what they could absorb.
Al began his career as a criminologist sitting on Lyndon Johnson's crime commission. And Al brought a systems perspective to the study of the justice system that's very much reflected in parts of that commission's report. And a systems perspective is a quantitative perspective.
One of the great things about Al is he's the only person on earth who was head of ORSA, the Operations Research Society of America, and TIMS, the Institute of Management Science, and also INFORMS, the organization that was created by merging them together. It's also telling that Al was president of all those organizations and of the American Society of Criminology. It doesn't happen very often that an engineer becomes president of a Society of Criminology and wins what amounts to the Nobel Prize in Criminology to boot.
Al was the principal investigator of the National Consortium of Violence Research, funded jointly by the National Science Foundation and National Institute of Justice. And in my experience throughout my career, still the finest example of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary work done in the field of criminology.
Al's influence in NCOVR was first the ability to convene a group of very senior, very, very well-known researchers to put together the proposal. His own experience in doing interdisciplinary work and his openness to the cross ideas that were emerging out of conversations, out of people meeting somebody from another discipline, and moving that on to the next generation of researchers, which he does, even till today. There are a number of legacies from the National Consortium on Violence Research. I think probably the primary one is the ease and the comfort that researchers, young researchers, feel in working with people from other disciplines in addressing issues. That's like teaching somebody to walk and talk. That is really key. The second thing it did was provide a way to access data that was easy. It was 21st century as opposed to, let's write a SAS program to strip down this data. And I think the third is that out of it there have been methodologies developed, in particular by Dan Nagin, that have facilitated the use of longitudinal data. So you have the people ready to work across disciplines and happy to work comfortable in working across disciplines. You have easy access to data, and you have new methodologies that allow the research to be facilitated.
Al is definitely the roots and the trunk of a tree in criminology that holds a lot of us together. So many different people, are one step away. Not 6 degrees of separation. We're 1 degree of separation because of our admiration and our respect and the impact that Al has had on our careers. And the nice thing about all of us is that we can call Al a friend too.
A major challenge to criminology is being able to bring their knowledge and understanding to the public officials who in large part are driven more by ideology than they are by knowledge and rationality.
Well, I first met Al when I was first entered the PhD program at what was then called the School of Urban and Public Affairs. And when I came back, I thought I was going to do research on health policy, actually, with Lester Lave, another person who was an important figure in my life. But one day I walked into Al's office, and this was long time ago, in the early 70s, when crime rates had been rising for about a decade. And one of the explanations that had been offered for it was that this was the baby boomers coming of age. That is, that most crime is committed by like 18-year-olds, usually 18-year-old males. So I asked Al, I said, well, how much of an explanation can that explain why crime rates are rising? And he said, well, I don't know, let's try, let's look at it. He and I began a research project on that topic, and here I sit now, over 40 years later, and continuing to study crime.
The personal side of Al is, Al never has said no to me when I need advice about something professionally or personally, and he's always one to say, look, here are the things that you have before you, and he's never gone out and said, well, this is what I would do, but what he would do is by the way he would communicate the message. But the man has a mind and a heart bigger than I could ever even describe to you in video.
He's one of the two key mentors in my early life that if this Al Blumstein had not existed, I'd probably be selling used cars today. It's true.
Al was a role model more than a mentor. And let me explain. I grew up in a blue-collar, working-class town in western Pennsylvania of 1,000 people. Our town was dominated. The backdrop was a steel production plant. Think the deer hunter, if you would. All right? And so I grew up in an area where it really wasn't brains as much as it was hard work. You got ahead through hard work. And Al was a role model because in addition to being brilliant, this was a scholar, a gentleman who every day, every moment seemed to always be in his office working. And so I wanted to be like him. I never wanted to disappoint him. If he could be there working, then as a graduate student, I should be there working, is what I always felt. Now that kind of, I want to say, I picked really bad advisors in this standpoint, because Al came in very early, took a break, went home to his family, worked some more, went home to his family, came back and worked into early evening. Jackie Cohen came in late afternoon and stayed until the early hours of the morning. So as I was trying to work and emulate my two primary advisors, they were there 24/7 basically. I couldn't get away from them if I wanted to.
Working with Al was a real adventure. I think that's the best way I can describe it. When we came together, I think probably the first thing we had to figure out was how do two people who have run their own world learn to work together? And I can't say we didn't have some rough times right in the beginning, but we worked it out. And out of that, this relationship grew where when we had our last workshop, we had it in Bermuda, and our steering committee gave Al and me each a present. But what they said was very interesting. They said, Al was like our dad. He always told us we could do anything. And Pat was like our mom. She would tell us, no, you can't. So that was our working relationship.
When you work with him, the personal and the professional merge. You know, there was the title of the book by Tom Wolfe, A Man in Full. Al is a man in full. He's a splendid person. He's a great listener. He's a great thinker. And it's not a surprise that he's one of the most influential social scientists of our time. I don't think that's in the least an exaggeration.
When I first came to Carnegie Mellon, one of my challenges was to coordinate the development of a graduate program. And we didn't know at that stage whether we wanted a professionally oriented MS or a research-oriented PhD. And Al was one of a handful of folks who I interacted with significantly in those early stages when we were trying to work our way through those issues. We ended up building a doctoral program, which I think it's fair to say today has succeeded beyond our wildest expectations, but it was some of the visions that Al brought to how to do research on policy problems where the technical details matter that helped shape what is today the PhD program in engineering and public policy.
In the early days of the Heinz College, then the School of Urban and Public Affairs, Al was by far the most prestigious and influential faculty member in terms of outreach to the broader community, and was extremely important in not only the leadership, but able to spread the word about the school and to position us with regard to other schools, other peer institutions. Al was the first person in the school who was in the National Academy. Al is the first faculty member at Heinz to get an endowed chair. He represented an intellectual leadership, although it wasn't one that was marked by ego. It was one that was marked by example. One of the things that took place when I was dean was the hiring of a whole batch of young faculty that became the underpinnings for the entire school. And when I say young faculty, I don't mean me. I was brought in slightly before that, but Al had extremely good taste in the faculty that came in under his deanship.
I arrived at Carnegie Mellon an engineer through and through. My undergraduate, first master's, second master's, PhD, all engineering. But I was hired in a group that included an engineer, an economist, a demographer, an accountant, and a finance person. I encountered a truly interdisciplinary faculty, and that has made me an interdisciplinary thinker. I've even now published in journals in economics and political science and statistics, even sociology and public health. I never would have done that if I hadn't come here to this institution that Al built.
Well, when I came in to the Heinz College, what was then SUPA, the Public Policy School, there was a very large cohort of young junior faculty that he hired at about the same time. And so that would be people like Krishnan, who is, of course, still here, Lowell Taylor, John Calkins, people who are now really the senior leadership of the school. And he used to meet with us and mentor us. And this cohort, this great cohort that we had of junior faculty, we felt like we were respected and our voices mattered as much in decision making as the full professors. And so he made us, from day one, feel a part of this community in a way that I think you don't find most places.
I'm always and will forever be grateful for him offering me a job. And then after having hired me, he created an environment for me and for the other junior faculty at the Heinz College that was truly remarkable. It was, I think, his most remarkable legacy to the school, that he hired lots of good, talented young junior faculty, and then he created an environment where we could flourish. He encouraged creativity, he encouraged us to try to take risks with our research, and he encouraged us to create new courses and to do things our way. It was really something.
Yeah, and it really felt like we were a family and that we were all in this together. I think that's one of the amazing skills that Al had as a leader. He hired great people, but he also hired people that were nice people and that wanted to work together. And that's why the Heinz College still has today such a strong community, is because of the people that he hired. So he was obviously looking for good academics, but he also was creating a community. And to do that together has really led to the success of this place. We never really crossed paths in terms of our research interests, but I always felt that he took a special interest in me. And not only Al, but Dolores as well. They come as a package, and she was a really important part of our community as well, at making us feel welcome and part of the family. Every year they had this barbecue in the backyard of their house at the beginning of the year. And it was a time just to come, we're back to school, we're back into teaching, just to relax and be with each other in a really intimate environment. And it was Al and Dolores together that created that for us and that created us as a community.
After I got hired, my mom came to town to visit, and she had never met Al. And both Linda and I had told her these stories about this, eminent criminologist and this dean and this man who had this fairly stern reputation. And at some point during her visit, she got to meet Al. And we had dinner and, we talked and we had a lovely evening, and we left. And as we were driving home, I remember my mom saying, "Mark, that's not the person you described to me." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah, he's got smiling eyes. The Al Blumstein you described doesn't have smiling eyes." I said, "Well, Mom, sorry, maybe I didn't notice them." But I think, my mom's a very intuitive person too, and she picked up on this part of Al just absolutely instantly, this deep humanity that he has.
Al is such an important part of the school that I'm really pleased that we were able to name a classroom for Al. So we have the Blumstein classroom right outside. I think Al, as one of the founding faculty members of this school, has sort of given us this two important aspects. I think one is this continuing intellectual curiosity and constant evolution, but at the same time true to this idea of problem-driven research with societal impact. And he's been so transformative in a number of important societal domains.
Al has so many ties to so many people that owe him really fundamental aspects of their professional lives. And it's remarkable. I don't know that I know anybody else that has had both the breadth and the depth of impact on people's lives that Al has had.
There's the old saying, a teacher affects eternity. He never knows where his influence stops. That may sound grandiose, but I can tell you from my own experience that as long as I'm alive, I will be continuing the spirit of Al Blumstein because he's influenced me in so many ways, much as he's influenced so many others. And all I can say is congratulations, Alan. Thank you for everything.
Al, this is a congratulations to you. Job well done. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do in your next career. And the idea of retirement, from you to me, I've decided I'm going to do the same thing.
Al, I hope you flunk retirement. That is, I hope you keep doing the wonderful stuff you've been doing, perhaps at a slightly more modest pace, but do keep it up.
This is supposedly a retirement video, but we all know you're not retiring, so take it for that. This is just all of us telling you how much we appreciate you, even though you're not retired.
You've been an amazing influence in the world and in criminal justice work, and certainly in my life, and we certainly appreciate all of your contributions.
Congratulations, Al, on a wonderful career. You should look back on it with great pleasure and happiness. You've had a huge influence on the field of criminology. You've had a huge influence on me. I've learned a lot from you. And everyone admires you enormously, and everyone has been greatly influenced by you. So well done, Al. You've had a great career.
Hi, Al. I know this is your retirement, but as you and I've talked, you will never retire. As you told me the other day, I'm not retired. I'm emeritus. This has been an incredible experience for me, working with you for 12 years, being your friend for now 20 years. You and Dolores mean an awful lot to me, and I want to thank you for friendship, for professional experiences, and for just being Al.
I've enjoyed a career that in very large part you're responsible for. I can't thank you enough, and I wish you all the best. I know it's not over for you. I hope it's not over for me, but I know it's not over for you yet. So enjoy the rest of your career.
Al, thank you for being such a wonderful mentor. You've been awesome, and you've done so many great things for the school. Now take a break. Have a good time.
Al, I really want to thank you for everything that you've done for me. I mean, you hired me, thank you, and you mentored me. You hired my husband, and you've been such a mentor and a friend for so many years. And I can't tell you how much it was meant to me and how much I have appreciated that. You've really helped me grow as a professional, as a person, be a good colleague. You've taught me how to be a good mentor to junior faculty now. And you've been an important part of my life, and I can't thank you enough.
Congratulations, Al. You've had a fabulous career. It's been an inspiration to me and to all of us. Thank you.
Al, congratulations, and with gratitude and thanks, the Heinz College is what it is because of you, and all of us share the gratitude and wish you and your family well, and thank you for everything you've done.
I can't even begin to express the appreciation I have for the role you've played in my career and for the friendship that you've given to me and to my family over the years, and I wish you the continued best for the many decades to come.
Al, there's nothing that I'm going to say on this tape that I haven't already told you to your face. You know, you've been such a huge impact on my life. You have embodied the importance of working hard, focusing on your career, but never forgetting about your family. The things that I appreciate are that every time I see you and or Dolores, is that how are the boys? How's Alex? How's Eli? How are they doing in school? Remember, your Grandpa Al and Grandma Dolores to Eli when you adopted him, and so he could fly as an unaccompanied minor from California back to Pittsburgh. So clearly we have a special bond. And again, from the bottom of my heart, and Lisa and Alex and Eli, congratulations not just on an amazing academic career, but congratulations on a full, wonderful life lived.
I see the pocket protector in your pocket of your shirt with a couple pens, a couple pieces of paper, and I carry those things around now as well, interestingly enough. What you've done for the field, I don't need to tell you that. Everybody will tell you that. I mean, the world will tell you that. I think what really matters here is what you did for me and my wife as people. You opened up your door to your house. You had people over. You fed people. You bought us drinks at a bar. You took us to great places around the world to do great research, to have meetings, to take the craft seriously, but never to take ourselves seriously. You've made me want to be a better mentor. You've made me want to be a better scholar. And I hope in some small way I'm communicating that to the field. And hopefully that one day you will look back and say, Alex did good. Because I wake up every day trying to be a better scholar, a better mentor, and a better person, in large part because of your training.
You know, I know you've had this remarkably accomplished academic career, and you've had an extremely distinguished career as an administrator, and you've built both the Heinz School and, in a way, Carnegie Mellon into what it is today. I just also want you to know that as you did that, you built both a community and a home for a tremendous number of people, myself included. And the value that that has to each of us, to me and to Linda, to John and Krishnan and Rema and Lowell and Dan and all the people there, is immeasurable. And there's no way we can ever repay you for that. So, thanks.